Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me and for wanting to understand more about what Afrikanah is all about. So let me tell you. It took me almost 20 years to get my German citizenship, while my family and I were living in, schooling in, and paying taxes into the system all these years. Every year, whenever we went to the Ausländerbehörde, meaning the foreign registration office, they would send us back, usually with changing reasons. We didn't know how to challenge back then. And throughout my years, the biggest reason, however, that stuck with me would be, we don't know whether your children will actually finish school this year. Meaning, for some reason of theirs, it was very likely we would fail, or we could fail, and become a liability to the system. And without citizenship, it's obviously much easier to get rid of a liability by simply deporting it. So year after year, my father would hammer into our brains to work hard, come back home with nothing but excellent grades, behave, and not get into trouble. You say, well, Julie, that's normal. Every parent would want their kids to do that and succeed. But the reason wasn't mainly for us to just do well. It was to just one day be favored enough to finally get to a place you call human in Germany, where you being treated with respect and dignity would be your basic experience and expectation. Or, shall I say simply, a basic part of being human, regardless of your efforts or the color of your skin. Thankfully, I was very happy and a vivid kid, so I didn't bother too much about these types of incidents while growing up. Or maybe I ignored them. My best friends, though, were almost exclusively white, and I never spoke to them about my blackness, simply because that didn't matter when we were together, even though this didn't mean I didn't experience general systemic racism. But of course, I didn't know what that was back then. And at the same time, I went through various professional experiences where I met unbelievably great people, again, most of which were white and generally very open-minded and diverse. I had a great professional path. I worked at early-stage startups that successfully disrupted two big industries that were in dear need of overhaul. And along the way, I was inspired by some of the most amazing people one could ever be blessed to know, and some of which became friends and advisors and coaches and mentors and family. But as I moved up that career ladder and learned to see things from outside my own bubble of success, I realized that there are very few around me who look like me, if there were any at all in those places. And when I say in those places and positions, I mean those ranks that don't validate the stereotype of the toilet cleaner, the rag, or even the geriatric nurse. You know, those who supposedly did not do well enough in school in order to get a better job that usually requires excellent academic background, and a background that's ideally recognized in the West also. While at the same time, these jobs that are supposedly lower class and lower paid, they're all extremely demanding and unfortunately places where people and their labor are often exploited. But the ultimate trigger for this podcast was unleashed when last year in 2021, I was at a meetup with about 30 young Black girls who went to that meetup because they wanted to look for a safe space of like-minded girls who would understand their everyday struggles, a place where they could discuss without judgment of their feelings and hopefully get the encouragement and empowerment to not give up and, to find coping mechanisms to living in a world that is mainly so not like you, but also that somehow seems to be giving you the impression that they don't like you. I wanted to listen to their stories and just learn from that experience. And then something really mind-blowing happened. You need to picture this. So we're sitting in this room, everyone is introducing themselves, and then comes this young, dark-skinned African woman who introduces herself and goes, "I'm a gynecologist." The entire room just went ballistic. Like, they literally shouted in disbelief. Most couldn't close their mouths, and for about an entire minute there was this uproar. And I realized myself also that I was like, wow, I never actually saw a black doctor in Germany. I couldn't believe it. And I also couldn't believe how this actually affected me so much when it dawned on me. I realized that the places I usually see African people are definitely not in those prestigious seats of doctors and lawyers and decision makers. I was dumbfounded, and so much so that I took a decision that evening when I was at home. This was really the moment that changed everything for me, and that caused me to reflect and be even more aware of my surrounding and how that surrounding looks like and why. To not simply, vegetate and function and just do my thing, but to question, because that's what we're capable of doing as human beings, right? I think that's what we're supposed to do, and what really sets us apart as humans. And so I chose not to complain about why there is such an obvious lack of black people and white-collar jobs, why the system seems unfair to us, why young Africans have very few role models and representation that can inspire them and that are non-stigmatized or cliche, why the German media continues to portray African people and their descendants by instilling this image of needy, poor, starving, and victimized dark-skinned people who are in need of white saviors and continuous Western donations. Why there is some projected incapacity on Africans to take care of themselves. Instead of complaining about these things, I decided to search for those very black people to defeat that narration, to change it and challenge it, and in both directions. When I say both directions, I mean in regards to white people who consciously or unconsciously see it that way, and also for black people who might see it that way too, or even worse. There is no ultimate evil side or color, in my opinion, but there is a system that people reinforce, knowingly or unknowingly. And I want us to talk about that. I want us to talk about the things that make us black and white. And I want to talk about the things that make us human also. And I want us to question what we identify as and why. And also to not judge that. I chose to talk to those Africans and Afro diasporans very intentionally, the people who, in quote, made it, those who took on the white-collar or STEM jobs like that gynecologist, to simply understand one main thing. How did they do it? Because that's going to help us to really, understand and question what is it that makes us black and white. How did they become black doctors, software engineers, sales leaders, mobility pioneers, CFOs, consulting experts, and the like, in a system that seemingly wasn't made for, but rather against them? How did they learn to navigate through it so successfully? What's the catch? What makes them different? And are they even different? And most importantly, dear listeners, white and black, what do you see when you see a black person, when you see an African? Do you see victims, people in need of help, failure? Do you see a threat or danger? Do you see opportunity or talent? Do you see a potential friend or neighbor, maybe your future boss or co-founder, or the doctor that could save your child if they ever ended up in a hospital in need of immediate intensive care? What do you see? And what does your surrounding see? Maybe ask yourself that question. Maybe we should all ask ourselves that question in a sincere moment. And again, with no judgment at all. And as you look for that answer within, I hope you will accept my invitation. An invitation to you so that you can see what I see. I want to share with you the stories of those who represent a Black Africa in Germany in the system that they are so familiar with, but sometimes they feel like they don't belong, but also that they call home. I want to bring you closer to something or someone that might be strange or uncommon or foreign to you. I want to invite you to come closer to the Africa you might not know and to build authentic bridges and connections with it, to question, not only for the benefit of yourself, but that of your business, of your neighborhood, of this world. That's why this podcast is called Afrikanah. It's made up of the two words Africa and Na, which is the German word for close. And by the way, in Hebrew, Na means answer. I just felt like that was a great fit. You know, as I've had more and more conversations with various people already in this podcast, I've been blown away by this sheer amount of knowledge and insight and wisdom that these people have. And I really do hope you will see that too. I hope you'll listen to these episodes and will get inspired to see differently, to see positively, and to see that there is only one way forward, and that's together. That sounds quite cliche, you know? And I've thought long whether I should say these things, but it's the truth. And of course, you can disagree. That's totally fine. But if you don't, or if you do agree, work with me, work with us, with others, and one another, in order to turn just a tiny piece of this world into a place where the color of one's skin won't matter anymore one day. So thank you for listening until now, and for questioning, for being curious. And lastly, I love feedback, so please always feel free to share it with me. I usually will link relevant links mentioned in the conversation after all episodes. That way we can always stay in touch. Until next time on Afrikanah.
I am the tree, I am the flower, I am the bee, I am fire and I am wind, I accept love and also I give.